Hey guys, Angie to break down UFC 293 Adesanya versus Strickland, and oh my god, I can't lie, I'm pretty damn pleased with the outcome. I think everyone's still in disbelief, to be honest. It's not that I didn't think that Sean could do it. I always knew he could. I knew he deserved a title shot, and I knew he had the potential, but the way that he dismantled Izzy was just still something I'm comprehending. It's something definitely to behold. I mean, wow, this guy is a lot better than what I think anyone gave him credit for. Maybe a few people saw that he could do that to Izzy, but he definitely watched tape on Izzy, saw all of his openings, and game planned to dismantle it. Listen, I'm a really big Izzy fan. I love Izzy, and I always will. I always will love what Izzy's done, and he's done so much. But I did really want Sean to win this fight. I did think he could. I thought he might be able to win it. I mean, how could you not favour Izzy going into this fight, given everything Izzy's done? But I'm a fan of Sean. I'm a massive fan. I'm also a Strickland too, so I know it sounds really corny, and when I first discovered Sean, I discovered him because I was watching Usman's backlog of fights when I became a fan, and he was fighting this guy called Sean Strickland. I'm like, what? There's a Strickland in the UFC, and I know it's really tacky, and I actually hated Sean for that. I hated him. He was like, oh, what a loser. He must be a psychopath, and it turns out he is. He's a good kind of psychopath. But slowly, once I learned more and more about this guy, I'm like, wow, this guy he has overcome so much darkness in his life. He's such an underdog. He's such a real person, authentic. He's honest. He's trustworthy. I really wanted him to win, and even though it hurts to see Izzy be dethroned in a way as well, I could not be happier. Yeah, still recovering from yesterday. So where to start? So UFC 293, obviously Adesanya versus Strickland for the middleweight title in Sydney, Australia. Unfortunately, I couldn't get there because, well, what's the ticket prices, man? I miss the days of when I actually watched Izzy become champion in Melbourne back in a few years ago, and that was a fun event because it was in a stadium. And when it's in a stadium, more people can go, more people can afford, or more like real fans. Not everyone can afford hundreds of dollars just to, especially the way that the UFC advertised this. We didn't even know who was going to be the main event, so that's a little bit of criticism from me because I think it's a lot more. There's a better feeling when more people can go to an event, even if it is in such a big stadium. I feel like it was really good when I went to Melbourne. But anyway, that doesn't matter. One thing I did want to say actually is that I wanted to apologise for the way that some of the media handled Sean coming into the country. Like, he wasn't invited to the Indigenous welcoming ceremony, which I thought was a bit stupid, really. He says dumb shit, he doesn't mean it. He's a genuine person, so I was like, oh, come on. And some of the media coverage twisted everything that happened. He didn't go out and just punch someone in the face. He invited a fan to come up and spar with him, and it wasn't a fan, it was someone that I think was arranged to sort of appear like a fan, and he got jabbed, but it was part of the act, and it wasn't like he just punched a random person. So I wasn't happy with that. Maybe the media is different overseas, but I didn't like the way the Australians handled some of Sean's media. It was cancelling. You can't just cancel him like that. I think if you're going to welcome fighters into a ceremony, you don't exclude someone. And Sean, he's very embracive of different cultures, and he might say dumb shit, but he doesn't mean it. He's actually wanting to. He is interested in diversifying. Like, he's done that his whole life. He came from being a neo-Nazi as a kid. He came from a wreckage and of his life, and he's done this. He is such a good role model, and the fact that you're excluding him from certain things, that's not cool. I don't think Izzy went to that ceremony either, but if you're going to invite some fighters, invite them all. I don't even know if they did or not invite him or not. Maybe the media is just lying, but that's that. So going into this fight, I thought I'll talk about Izzy for a bit. I thought Izzy's energy was really good, actually. I thought he seemed really calm. He seemed to be in control of his emotions. He seemed to be ready for whatever was coming. It seemed like he was prepared, but I know it sounds weird, but once he said he was going to walk out in red shorts, I'm like, no, this doesn't look right. I don't know why. I think it's just because I've never seen him in red before, but for me, I've always tied Izzy to blue colours and other colours, but never red, so it was really interesting for me to, I don't know, it didn't sit right for me. Also because Anzac fighters are meant to wear green and yellow, and for me it just didn't seem right, and I know that doesn't really mean anything, but for me I was like, oh, that's really strange. And Izzy, when he walked out, he seemed to be having fun, a lot of energy, but I was surprised that he didn't dress up at all for Sean, and I thought he would. I thought he might walk out like as a Chinese dragon or maybe some sort of Chinese themed thing, but he didn't. And I feel like Izzy needs to do that, because whenever he walks out and he doesn't do something weird, he seems to lose. It's really weird. And he seems to have really bad performances. Although the first fight with Pereira was not a bad performance. But this tonight, I think that, okay, I don't think it was necessarily a bad performance by Izzy. I'll get into that later. I think it was more that Sean just had an answer for every little feint, every little thing that Izzy threw. He saw everything and he knew everything. It was crazy. Yeah, I was surprised because Izzy looked, he seemed to be in a good, even though he didn't walk out with all the shenanigans and all that, he seemed to be very loose when he walked into the cage. But I think as soon as he locked eyes with Sean, once Sean was ready to lock eyes with him and stare at him in that cold way he does, that something changed in Izzy then, I think, because the fighters described, like Pereira said, oh, the way that he looked at me was like he actually wanted to kill me. And I think that's a different feeling that I think most fighters don't look at their opponents that way. But I feel like as soon as they locked eyes and they were fighting, something changed in Izzy. And I think it was a combination of that with the technical aspects that Sean brought. Sean just saw everything. Sean was very patient. In the first round, it was very much like, oh, they're just feeling each other out. But then it seemed to be that Izzy wasn't really setting up anything just yet. And when Sean knocked him down at the end of that first round, I thought it was going to be over. And I was actually so shocked as well. I thought that maybe he'd won the fight then. And I was also worried that once Izzy got up, I'm like, oh, Sean, you're going to have an adrenaline dump now. But he wasn't fazed by it. And part of me was also thinking, damn, how come the ref isn't stopping this when they stopped it so early for Aljo? But then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, no, it's completely different. Izzy he was rattled, but he wasn't out. Aljo was a bit, from what O'Malley says, his eyes rolled back in that, and from rewatching that, it looked like he was out. I don't think Izzy was out, but it was just so shocking. It was like, oh my god, he's hit him clean. And it was such a weird thing, because Izzy's never been hit like that. I don't think I've ever seen him hit like that. Like, even Pereira didn't land something so clean on him. It's like, what the fuck is going on? So then I think everyone was on the edge of their seats then, thinking, whoa, what is happening here now? Is he going to just wake up and come back? And I thought Izzy did have a really good second round. The first time watching it, I thought Izzy won. The second time watching it, I thought, yeah, maybe it's really close. The third time watching it, I actually watched it with Joe Rogan's fight companion, and I thought that Izzy didn't even win a round. Isn't that funny? Because I turned off the sound and I was listening to Joe, and he thought that as well. But it looked like that when you turn off the sound. It's so different when you turn off the sound watching a fight and you're listening to someone else. But regardless of that, I thought maybe it's arguable that Izzy didn't even win a round, which is absolutely backwards. We thought that Izzy would be doing this to Sean. We thought it would be 5-0 for Izzy, and we thought it would be an easy fight. Like, because technically, how did we overlook this? How did this happen? I think it was because Sean did his tape study. He did all the work he had to. He listened to the advice from Pereira and the team down there in Brazil, or wherever he went. But I think for Sean, people feel like he didn't take it seriously. He took this seriously. He did everything that people thought he wouldn't do. He wasn't willing to do. But I think he's changed. And I think everything's clicked into place now that he realised that he does have his shot. Because I feel like he probably never thought he would get his shot. And part of me felt like he may not either, just because he's controversial. Which is stupid. Just makes him more of an important figure, if you ask me. And then in the third and fourth, fifth rounds, it just seemed like Sean started to take over more and more, and he was marking Izzy up. Izzy was bleeding. It's so surreal. I need to rewatch it now just to know it's real. It's such a crazy sport and I love it. Yeah, so I really feel like this is what Sean did to Izzy technically. And even though I can't really explain it, Sean managed to find the openings. His style, I think the biggest misjudgment is that people thought that Izzy's style would be very bad for Sean, where it turned out to be the opposite case. Strickland's so weird. The way he stands there, it's like that Philly Shell Hitman style. I don't know if Hitman style is the actual term for it, but I watched Hajime no Ippo, and there's, what's his name? Mashiba. Can't remember his name, but he has the same stance as Strickland in the boxing. Then they call it Hitman style, and damn, works. He makes it work. It's so cool. It's so cool. Back to Izzy. I don't think that he was burnt out, but I do think that maybe creatively he was. And I can tell because I know what it feels like to be creatively burnt out. Because the fact that he didn't give a shit about doing any of that crazy walkout stuff he did and a few other things, I thought, I think he needs to have a break. I don't think he should immediately rematch Sean. I don't think it'll go well for him if he rematches him within like the next half of the year. I don't think it'll be a good idea for him. I can see the UFC giving Strickland Hamzat if he wins. Middleweight division seems so exciting now. It's sad to see Izzy be defeated like that, but I feel like he's been on top for so long. He's a little bit, he's not burnt out, but I think he is creatively, and I think he needs to just fill that well up again and chill out for a bit and do some other fun stuff. Yeah, I don't think it'll be good for him to rematch Sean like this. No way. There's so much tape now on Izzy from so many title fights. I guess it's only a matter of time before someone sees all the holes, and it's kind of funny that it's Strickland that managed to take advantage of that. And like for Sean, he's a kind of character that Australians love, in case you didn't realise. And even though some of the way this country's run is a little bit, what it is, Australians are we're free people, and we know what bullshit is. Sean Strickland's the kind of character we resonate with. I think that's why there was a lot of a mixed crowd. Izzy has a very loyal following though, and Izzy was kind of right, I think, when he said, "Oh, you'll remember what I did to Whittaker," and that's true. Like, Izzy's a little bit of an anti-hero, in a way. Even though he's an Anzac, he's not. Australia and New Zealand, even though they're Anzac, which is a combination, more of a military term, I guess, but there's still a rivalry there. But when I watch the UFC, for example, I pretty much root for all of them. Like, I see them all as our boys, all of City Kickboxing. But I think when it comes to Australia versus New Zealand, there's still a rivalry there. I'm just trying to comprehend everything. It feels really cool. I'm just a bit like, now. Too much whiskey yesterday, I guess. Yeah, I'm just going to cover the main event today. Hopefully I can get back to doing some breakdowns and stuff. Yeah, thanks for listening, and I hope you have a good week, and see you around the traps.